All right, guys, we are live on Facebook now in Everything Next Level personal and professional group. And we've got some people joining us on Zoom as well. Let me just welcome you guys to a very special experience that we're creating because, a lot of times I have a set schedule, Mondays and Wednesdays, and I have set schedules for our members. And the third Thursday, if you guys have not seen the documentary that just came out on Netflix about We Are the World, I highly encourage you. I've been saying it for the last week. I highly encourage you to go and watch it, and you will thank me that you did because it's just such a great documentary, with heart and passion and emotion that you don't normally find in a documentary. So.
We might
Um,
give them the title of that. It's called The Greatest Night in Pop.
The Greatest Night in Pop, which is just such a, I mean, I remember seeing the promotion of it. Here we got to take everyone off camera. There we go. And the only reason taking people off camera is so that it's just showing up you and I on there, and then we'll open it up for Q&A.
I
But
see Flomena on there too.
yep, Flo's in there too. So
Yeah,
maybe
that's, I mean, it
zoom in a
doesn't
little.
bother me. It doesn't matter how you
Yeah.
do it. This
Okay.
is your home. I'm visiting your home.
We're just going to create a great conversation for people to get to know you. Many of the members know you, but some of the people in Next Level Entrepreneur don't know you. So we're just gonna create that experience. You know, but guys, go watch the film. Not right now, but later on today. Go as soon as this is over, or as soon as you can, watch it because it's a great documentary. And like I said, the thing I love about it was it's documentary style, but it's got heart, emotion, passion, love, energy. It's got excitement. It's got things that you just don't normally find in most documentaries. So, but one of the people that is featured in the show, in the film, and one of the people that I've gotten to know over the last, I don't know, 10, 12, 10 years or so, is this gentleman here, Tommy Bahler. And I met him. We were both speaking at an event in Vegas, and I got to hear him speak. And I immediately said, I want to, get to know you better. And so we agreed to meet for coffee the next day, and we sat down for about 3 hours
That's
and had
right,
this
right.
this great conversation. And I just really got to know the man, and I've come to just love him and appreciate him and respect him so much. And Tommy, I appreciate you hopping on here today, and I can't wait for our conversation to be heard.
Well, thank you. And likewise to you. I was just thinking while you were getting ready, I thought, if if this isn't a wonderful time that we're going to have here, it'll be the first time since you and I met.
Mm,
Because when we first met, we did sit down, I have a coffee, and it went on for 3 hours.
yeah, yeah,
And it's been like that ever since. Anytime you and I get together, we just fall into some kind of it's like a its own planet, and
yeah,
it's wonderful. And so I love being here with you, man.
yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, that morning when we had coffee, I was like, where did I mean, I didn't even realize we'd been sitting there for that long. But it was so good and just such a great conversation. And every time you've been to Next Level, we've had just an amazing conversation. So I just have always really appreciated that. So um let's kind of this documentary that came out that Netflix did. How did that come about? I mean, everyone's seen We Are the World, knows We Are the World, but how did a documentary like this come about?
Well, I'm not sure how it came about, but I think it had to do with we haven't discussed that, but I think a lot of it had to do with Lionel Richie.
Mm, mm, mm,
And I've known Lionel for many, many years, and he's a lovely man.
mm,
And in fact, before, if my memory serves me right, before he got infected by music, uh, or really really loved music. Uh, he was planning on being an Episcopal priest,
Did not know that.
you know. So he's a very loving and generous spirit, as is Quincy Jones,
Hmm.
as was Ken Cragen. And I like to feel about myself that way.
Yeah.
And it just all happened. Uh, I look back at it now and think about the call that I got from Quincy one evening. He said, "Hey man, where are you busy?" And I said, "No." He says, "Come on over." So we lived about 10 miles away. Anyway, I went over his house and he said, "You know the song, Do They Know It's Christmas?" And I said, "Yeah, it's wonderful. It's great. I love that they brought all, it was basically Bob Geldof brought in all his friends, which were stars, you know, and they made this thing, and it sold more records in England's history and the time and all of that. But where they messed up, Quincy said, but they messed up, man, because nobody's going to play that song in March.
Hmm.
Oops.
Oops.
So Geldof came to the States because he's an activist. He's a friendly activist like Harry Belafonte. You know, nobody minds, everybody wants Harry Belafonte, would want them at their parties and things, even though the things he talked about wasn't like, oh, we need to do this stuff. You know, I mean, he didn't preach, but he lived by example, and so did Bob Geldof. And Geldof came and immediately, because he was friends with Harry, called me and said, "Hey, man, we messed up. We need to do something here. And this is the big country. I mean, England is fine, but we've already proved the concept." And Harry Belafonte didn't pretend to be a producer. You know, he was a marvelous man. And he said, "Well, I think, you know, we could do a big concert." And I know the guy that put that together is Ken Cragen. Ken Cragen was the leading manager. And, you know, managers sometimes get a bad name, and the ones that get a bad name deserve it. But then you have your Ken Cragens, who is another person who loves humanity, who is a generous spirit. I met him my very first big time job was on the Smothers Brothers show. I was a singer. There were 8 singers and 8 dancers, and you know, we made up the cast. And and at that time, Ken Cragen, who was only about 5 years older than me, he managed the Smothers Brothers, and that's how I got to know him. And we just liked each other. There was no business involved. I was just a singer on the show, but we liked each other. We got into conversations, and as the business went on, we kept running into each other. "Oh, it's you again," you know. So that friendship was, you know, like steeping a great tea. You know, it just took its time, and anyway, when Harry Belafonte called Ken, Ken said, "Well, I love the idea of a concert, but a concert's a one-off. You do it and it's done."
Yeah.
He said, "But I think Geldof has already given us the map, gave us a template. You know, he hired his best friends who were big stars in England and all over the world. And they did this song, Do They Know It's Christmas? It worked. It sold more records in their history. And, you know, but it had it had an expiration date. So I think that we should write a new song. And he also had this in his head that, you know, the American Music Awards are going to be here in LA. All the stars are going to be here. We don't have to fly them in. You know, I mean, he's so smart. And he just put this whole together thing, you know, in about 30 minutes, and as far as the blueprint. And we all followed that. And he immediately said, Lionel, who is his client, and at the time was on fire. If you remember, he won 6 awards at the I mean, he ran away with them, and he was hosting it. It was
Right.
almost embarrassing. And but he said, Lionel, uh, let's just write another song, listen to what that is about, and let's write our own. And so Lionel started on that, and he said he was going to put him together with Stevie Wonder. Well, we all love Stevie Wonder, and he's a genius, but he's not the most reliable guy in terms of the kind of things in fact, they couldn't get a hold of him for a week or two. And this is, by the way, 3 weeks before we recorded this song, 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
So
Crazy.
he calls Quincy. He said, well, I want Quincy to produce it. And Lionel, of course, said, yes, of course. So he calls Quincy. Quincy calls me. He says, hey, man, come on over. I got to talk to you about something. He said, we got this deal, and we're going to do this. You know the song, and we're going to rewrite it. And Lionel started on it, and we haven't been able to get a hold of Stevie, but I'm seeing Michael tomorrow, and I'm going to mention it to Michael and see if, because this is right up his emotional path as well. So that's the way that the song got going. And because I said, can I hear the song? He said, man, it's not written yet. But I want you to put the voices together.
Wow.
And I said, okay, that'd be great. And the thing is that I had a long history that I didn't even think about at that time. But now, since this has become such a big thing, I thought, how did you get so comfortable with a lot of people?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a great question, because I looked at just any one or two or five of those people, but 30 different people or whatever the amount was, to
46.
46 different people, and they're
Yeah.
all big names.
Yeah.
To be able to have the ability to connect with them in such a way was really amazing. How
Well,
were you able
I'm
to
sorry.
do that?
I'm sorry.
How were you able to do that?
Well, the coordination was all done by Ken.
Okay.
That's really, if you think about it, later on, he did Hands Across America.
Right.
Think about doing that,
Yeah.
No, he's a
I asked
wonderful,
him about that one day. I
he
couldn't
was a
believe it.
genius in his field. How to put things together, how to bring the right people in, how to do, that was his gift. And besides being a sweet guy, just a lovely, lovely man. And anyway, so Quincy calls and says, yeah, the song's not written yet, but I want you to do the core. I want you to handle the voices. And I said, well, who are they? And he said, well, we don't know yet. But so we didn't know anything. But the point was that, Ken starts saying, once they started talking around his office, because he was basically the top manager at the time. And some of his staff wanted to do Madonna, which would have been a great call.
Sure.
And and he thought, this was his instinct, because he loved Madonna. In fact, I think he may have, even if he didn't then, at some point he managed her. But anyway, he he loved Cyndi Lauper. She's exciting.
Yeah.
And so there was, it wasn't an argument, but it was discussion. I think, well, I think it should be Madonna. He says, well, I'm calling this one, and it's going to be, so that's the way the people started coming together. And then Steve Perry, when they mentioned Steve Perry, I go, oh my God, I love that voice. Everybody they talked about, Bruce Springsteen, and as it came together, Quincy and I, one of the greatest things, Quincy and I have been together for 50 years now. And the things that I've learned about him, from him, by example, not by him lecturing, but we were in the studio. What's going on here?
We can hear you.
I'm no, I'm sorry. I just need to turn off my phone here. I'm sorry.
No worries. We can hear you.
Okay, how do I do this? Okay, there we go. I lost you there. What
Oh,
happened?
I don't know. We hear you. We can see and hear you.
You can hear me, but I can't see you. What the heck?
We can see you.
Okay, well, give me a second and I'll be right back with you because I can't see squat right now except my own screen. Give me a second
Okay, no
and I'm
worries.
going into your Zoom room
No worries.
and then everything should be fine.
Well, while you're doing that,
Oh,
I'll tell
wait.
you a story. I got a chance to meet Ken Cragen one time, and I tell you, that was a treat. I did not know who he was, but I was at Tony Hsieh, who was the founder of Zappos.
Yes.
I was at Tony Hsieh's house in Las Vegas, and had been invited to this party. And Ken and I were standing there talking. Like I said, I didn't know who he was. And we had this conversation, and I was just like, this guy is just the nicest guy, such a humble, sweet
Yes.
guy. And I thought, I wonder if it's because the environment we're in, or is he just always that way? And hearing from you, he was just pretty much always that way.
He is that way. I mean, he was that way. I knew him since 67, you know, and he treated me, as nicely as he treated Tommy Smothers. You know what I mean? He just
Yeah.
that is him, and he earned that trust. So
Mm.
anyway, I forgot where I was because I got shocked by that call. I turned it off now. I'm sorry. Where was
Oh,
I?
wait. No, you were talking about the how you got connected, how
How it was beginning. Yes,
Lionel
yes,
was how,
yes.
yeah,
So so
how you made that all come
everybody involved, which at that time was Ken Cragen, Lionel Richie, Quincy Jones, and me. And they went to Michael. And and he and Michael worked on the song. And and then we started collecting names, who would be who was gonna, first of all, who's going to be at the American Music Awards. Because those are all the freebies. You don't have to fly them in. All you
right.
have to do is send a car after them. And a lot of them said, "Oh, I'll just drive over." I mean, Bruce Springsteen parked across the street from the studio on La Brea and jaywalked himself across. He must have stopped traffic. That's, oh my God. Anyway, it was wonderful. And the other thing was to keep it secret, because if those stars showed up and there were scads of people, they weren't. So we needed to keep this clean. And also we sat down and Quincy was the general. Quincy basically said, "Nad, this is like going to war, man. We
Mm.
need to know what we're going to do and what could possibly go wrong and have an answer for it. That's what we need to do." So as we all collected the voices, and then Ken Cragen, in his usual way, sent me albums of every voice that we considered, so I could listen to their ranges. But oddly enough, I had worked with about half of the people, and somehow, I don't know, I just, because I've done this all my life, uh, ranges are sort of embedded in me. So as we collected the people, we started making lists of possibles, you know, and there were a lot more than we could use. I'm not even sure how many soloists. I'd have to go through it to see that we actually have, but I think it was somewhere close to 20, and
Incredible.
and when we got down, the song was being written, and we all had a voice in it. And the thing was that, yes, the two writers of note were Michael and and Lionel, but they were all, everything was pro bono. No one was going to make a nickel off this. Yes, they are the writers of that song. To this date, they have not collected a dime And we're still bringing in my attorney has been my attorney my entire career, was also the attorney for this, and Jay Cooper. And Jay said, um, he said, he and I had dinner not too long ago, and he said, we're still bringing in a couple of 100,000 a year on just on, just, and it still goes to the same place. Every cent is spent on food, medicine, and clothes. And so they built a house that was a real house with real emotion, with real dedication, and they haven't changed. And we're all proud of that, None of us had made a nickel off of this, but I got to tell you, it's changed my career, it changed Michael's career, it changed Lionel. I mean, everything. It's amazing when you give how many things come back to you that you never could expect. And especially because this was a worldwide tune. Since this movie came out, I'm doing about 3 or 4 interviews a week now. And I've got one in Belgium next week, in Belgium,
Great.
And there's, oh my gosh, um, anyway, all over the world, China. I mean, it's crazy.
Awesome.
But it also thrills me that we have touched hearts with this, and that Bao Nguyen, who I hope I'm pronouncing it right, that he was 2 years old when this song came out.
That's incredible.
And
Years
he
old.
is the 41-year-old director of this. And there's already been 2 or 3 documentary made about, and they're all good. I wouldn't say, I never saw one and say, that's no good. But they're all good. But this one, as you said in the beginning of your talk, is that he captured the emotion in every scene.
Yeah.
He captured the uncertainty. He captured every emotion that we could have had. And to me, about uncertainty, while we're planning, we sat down 2 nights before we recorded with Ken, Quincy, Lionel, and me over at his house.
Nights.
And Quincy said, it's not like us to come in and say what can go wrong, but that's what we have to do. We got one night, man. We can't come in and redo this. We got it. We got to hit. This is like going to war. So we have to prepare for war. And because we did, we talked about every singer that was going to be there. And a lot of them were just fine. They'll be fine. They'll be fine. They'll be fine. But there were certain people that are so used to running their own lives, that they're going to speak up. If we have, Quincy said, there's no time for navel gazing. There is no time for umaras. We have to be 5 steps ahead of them. Otherwise, they'll devour us. And the whole thing will turn into chaos. So first of all, how do we keep this together? So we labeled some of the people that we saw could be those people, and they weren't troublemakers. It's just that I've worked with Diana a lot. Diana is a forceful force. She's a wonderful singer. She's a great lady, a lovely mom. I mean, I just adore her. But when she goes to work, man, I worked with her a lot. And at first it wasn't easy because she's pushing you. She wants to see where that fence is. And once she finds out where it is, then you're cool. But until then, man, it's like, whoa, she's almost like you're in the ring with her. And I don't say that to say that she's mean in any way at all. I just say she's smart. And she knows how to handle her, Barbara Streisand the same way. She wasn't on this. But a lot of the reason that the people that we would have loved to have had were all so busy making movies, doing things, some people weren't available. But we had such a beautiful lineup that that we knew that we were going to be fine. And so when we sat there that night and decided how we're going to handle this, we talked about how, because I had written parts for the chorus, and normally you would, okay, you're a tenor, you're a soprano, you're an alto, yada yada. All of those things would happen, but what I learned in college, this is where you end up giving, and it comes back to support you somewhere else. When I was in college, I joined a fraternity because there were 6 guys from my high school, and they said, Baylor, we want you because they do a contest every year, and if you teach us how to sing, we can get the best sorority. So that was my job. So I had to teach them how to sing. A lot of them had, some did, some didn't. I don't need to go into all of that. But the point was that I said, guys, I'm going to teach you all of these parts, but you're all going to sing the same part at the same time. So when the person next to you is singing the same note, you get confidence. If the person next to you is singing a different note, sometimes you go, if you're not sure of yourself, you go, oh my God, am I on the right thing? I mean, it creates confusion. We did not want that. So every part, I rehearsed them before we ever recorded, because you can't go in the booth. Normally singers like to go in the booth because it's like a womb, and you learn the song, you get it, and then you go out in the studio and record it. Well, we didn't have room for 46 people. There's no booth that big. So we had to sing out in the big room with the big speakers on, and everybody was standing around. And when we started, I could feel an unsettledness, not anything bad. It was emotionally neutral, but I could feel that we're all looking at each other going, holy moly, I've been following you since, I loved you. I love, So we just kept running it and taught them the parts and said, we singers have a saying that we say, suck along quietly. So if you're singing in a group and if it's out of your range, you just stop singing. Because if you have more than 5 people, you can't tell who's singing what when. So, and especially if there are 46, I said, you don't have to worry about it. If it's out of your range, don't sing. But don't sing the octave lower, because that would mess up our mixes. So we're doing everything in prime unison, and we'll learn the parts. And as we're doing that, because it's 7 minutes long, rewinding it took some time. Well, we're looking around the room, and suddenly out of nowhere, Diana, I happen to be standing right by Daryl, and Daryl Hall, and suddenly Diana approaches him, and she's holding her music out like it's a Bible. And she goes up to Daryl and says, Daryl, I'm your biggest fan. May I have your autograph? And suddenly we all looked around the room and said, holy. And for the next 45 minutes, we all signed each other's music. And the magic of that, and Diana started this. So what happened in there emotionally is that we started out as individuals in a little unsettled situation. And after we all signed each other's music, we were family. It was beautiful. So now Quincy comes out and says, okay, let's chop wood. That's Quincy's way. I love the way that he paints, and so we started singing, and he reiterated, remember, we're all singing unison, no matter what it is. So that took out, and like Kim Carnes, who I've known since I was 18 years old. What a voice. What a beautiful, wonderful human being she is. She stood next to Michael. And after it was over, I said, how did you feel singing next to Michael? She said, well, he's perfect. And I said, yeah, that's him. And she said, but he never said a word to me. And I said, that's also him. because Michael was raised in a family of 9 children and 2 parents. So if he was around a dozen people or less, he was himself. You put him in a large group and he goes into a cave. And if you look at his face in that documentary, some people said, well, he wasn't happy. I said, no, he wasn't happy. He was quiet. He wasn't going. Michael's not the guy that is going to come out in 46 artists and say, I want you to do it this way. Diana is, you know, no, and several people on that group they were like Stevie Wonder is another one, that will say, hey, let's do it this way. Those are all great people, but we weren't looking for that night.
Right.
So we kind of kept them under the blanket without disturbing them. Anyway, but so Diana, what a purpose she served that night by
Yeah, what a catalyst.
she was a catalyst, a
Right.
beautiful catalyst.
It's amazing.
So, and the thing is, then once I got the list of the people, like I said, I had worked with a lot of them before, and Quincy said, I want you to do the arranging, but I have 2 requests. One, Lionel was the first one to start this song, so he should be the first person to sing. Typical Quincy making sense. And then the chorus, because Michael finished it, he should sing the first chorus. And then this is where his humor comes in. And he says, then I'd have Diana come in the second half of that chorus, because she and Michael are so close. A lot of people think they're the same person. So this is our chance to prove that they're 2 different people. That's just Quincy and his humor. But musically beautiful.
The thing that amazed me about that was you have all these different personalities put together in one room in a very short period of time, and yet it seemed to be so effortless from the outside. And yet I love this documentary because it showed some of the confusion, some of the nuances that were having to take place that nobody even really knew about.
Exactly. But the
Yeah.
point was, we were all there to serve a higher realm. We were going to feed and provide medicine and clothing to people that were in the middle of a famine.
Wow.
And what I loved about going back to Ken Cragen is that Ken knew that a lot of times some of the larger groups, and I'm not picking them out saying that they were the ones, but we know about the Red Cross and United, whatever it is. And a lot of times they would deliver all of these goods to the port of a government that was corrupt, and the government would sell it.
Right.
So they get rich while their people are just as well. Ken said, we're not going to do that because we are the first ones to do something like this where everybody knows almost everybody in that group that sang. And so we're going to video everything from the beginning of our people showing up to sing till we deliver the goods in Africa. And they did it. And our goods, the record alone made $63 million, still the biggest selling single in all time. $63 million in a few months. And then he turned that money into 120 million because every person that he called that was a vendor said, don't you dare make a nickel on this. We are all working for free. You can cover your costs, but that's it. And everybody was on the same, emotionally, they were all on the same. So nobody was looking to make trouble that night,
Yeah.
And yet some beautiful things happen, when when we wanted oh my God, the names are starting to hide from me now. One of the greatest single singers and a poet who was there that night. Oh shoot, what am I talking about? We wanted him to sing a line, there's a choice we're making. We're changing all our life. That's him, right? What's his name? Help me. Oh, come on. He was, huh?
When you say it, I'll know it, but I can't
Oh,
remember.
yeah. Well, when I say it, I'll know it too. Anyway, sorry. But the point is that if you looked at him, even when the chorus was singing, he wasn't doing too much because he was out of Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan, he was out of his element. Bob always sang with a guitar and a harmonica and just him. He's the guy. So he's not used to singing in a group. He's not used to, and it wasn't that it bothered him. He just felt inadequate.
Mm.
And when we got to adding him, and I love that Bao showed that because it showed him trying to fit in and not sure what to do. And then finally Stevie goes, oh, something like this. It's a choice we're making. We're changing our, and he goes, oh, so he rediscovered himself because of Stevie. So that's a beautiful thing to happen. And then also there were so many people there. I thought, who's going to be the king? Who's the king? And as far as I was concerned, Diana was the queen. That's just my own feeling. And because I know her personality and her strength and all of that. But I thought, who's going to be the king? And then suddenly, for a while, oh shoot, I'm sorry. I should have a list of the people in front of my.
There's a lot of people to remember that night.
Yeah, well, he's blind and he's black and he plays the piano.
Ray
One of the
Charles,
great
wonder.
Ray Charles. Thank you. God, I've worked with Ray so much. I love him. Anyway, but the point is, he just went over the piano and start playing kind of a gospel version of "We Are the World," And suddenly the whole room turned to him and were quiet and just listened to him as if he's giving a concert. And I went, there's the king. There's the king. He's the one that unanimously we looked at and said, yeah, you're the man. You are the man.
Tommy, it's one thing to hear the stories, and it's another thing to watch the movie or watch the film or watch the video. It's another thing to have been in the room at the time that this was all going. I mean, what was the precipice for you to say you knew this was going to be what it became?
I'm not sure I knew what it was going to be.
Really?
What are you talking about? What are you talking
how
about? The song?
How much
How big
impact
it
it
was
would
going to
have, and
be?
then the long standing.
We didn't know. We just knew that we were into it and had an opportunity, and we're going to all do our best. Seriously, everybody in that room just wanted that to work. And the other thing that Quincy did, they were talking about, when we wanted to do the chorus first, because we didn't want the chorus sitting around while we're doing solos, because they'd be thinking, I could do that better. You know what I mean? Or all sorts of thoughts. So the thing was to do the chorus and then invite them to stay if they wanted to, but you could go home because a lot of people wanted to go home. It's 3 or 4 in the morning, and then we made a circle. And so instead of bringing in the soloists separately, we put them all in there. So everybody's watching each soloist sing. And that also brought us together because there was no competition. We weren't there to compete. We were there to add and each person by that time knew that they were there because who can be more different than Willie Nelson and Dionne Warwick?
Right.
Excuse me. And this, and people say, how did you know to do that? I said, you know what? Once I had a list, because Quincy, I learned to make lists from Quincy. When you have a bunch of ideas, you put them all down, and pretty soon they start stepping off the paper. They come into you, and you don't have to look for them. My dad used to tell me that, son, you don't have to look for anything, man. If you want to do something, be quiet, because your mind's way ahead. I mean, your heart's way ahead of you, man. And listen to it and listen to what it says. So that's what happened that night. I sat down, and I knew it was going to start with with Lionel. There comes a time, And then I thought, well, Stevie was going to write it, but I'd love to hear him next, And then I'd like to hear, I mean, I know Kenny Rogers, and I met him when he was 5 years older than me. He was about the same size, age as Ken Cragen. But anyway, I met him when I was 18, and we became friends. And so a lot of these people I'd known for 20 years. So that was a new, no-brainer. Yeah. And then I love Paul Simon, says so much with a quiet voice. He rarely shouts. He never, like Michael. Michael never talked louder than this, except when certain things happen and excite him, and he goes, oh, that's it, but anyway, but the thing is, as I started going through the song, I look at the line, and the person would come to my mind strongly. They stood up and walked in and said, that's mine, without saying that, but I felt it. So I did that whole arrangement in 30 minutes because I wasn't thinking. Well, if I was thinking, it would be a math problem. But I just let the energies come in. And I knew once, because the first chorus, Michael's singing is so pure, and yet it's so full of emotion. I mean, he is the great, in my opinion, the greatest artist that ever lived. And I worked with him for 33 years, and I know every corner of that talent, except he didn't have any corners. You'd have to go to Mars to get close to him. Anyway, but the point was that when the first chorus was pure. It was, we are the, and then Diana comes in and brings her love to it, and then I thought right away, next chorus, I thought, who's going to do the next chorus? Steve, it was Springsteen. We are the world. So the difference between we are the world, that was the contrast that I was looking for. And then to have,
I get chills just thinking about it. And when I watched it, I got chills again. So it's just,
well, thank you. I'm glad you did. And as I'm explaining it, I'm using too many words because this happened in an instant.
Yeah. An
instant. And the thing is that Al Jarreau, he was so funny because they finally mentioned that he was drunk, he was a great jazz singer, and Quincy really wanted him there. He didn't sell a lot of records, but in the business, he was revered. He's a great singer. And he made it too. I mean, but the thing is that to go from, his voice is almost airy and soft, and then to go from him to, we are the world, I mean, it painted itself. And then I heard, well, the thing is, there was a slight chance that Prince might come. He was invited, but we kind of knew that he wouldn't. And I kind of knew because I had done some research on him. He's a marvelous, marvelous talent. And the thing is that, this is my opinion, Michael and he did not have, they weren't having a contest. Prince was having a contest. Michael just loved Prince. I didn't see Michael ever feel like he had somebody that he had to prove himself to. Michael was beyond that. He was somewhere in the space. I used to you're an alien. He goes, maybe, I don't know, about that. But I mean, he was just, I never saw him like, oh my God, you know? The only thing that's the reason he was so quiet that night was, and a couple of times when we got into a small group, then he was more animated. But the rest of the time you'll see him, he's just kind of sitting back and his face doesn't really show emotion. That's him being in his, knowing that it's being taken care of, and he doesn't have to join this choir. I mean, he doesn't have to join the band, he'll do his work, and that's what he did. Um, so when we got down to Cindy, on the end, yeah, she killed it.
Oh, she
And but the
crushed
thing is, she was also uncomfortable, when she said, "Would you guys stop laughing when I'm singing?"
right.
And they weren't laughing. It was her jewelry that was making noise, and it but that's Cindy. Cindy's that's just part of her build about who she is. She's brilliant and a great singer. And then when she sang it, this isn't in the movie even, but Quincy said, "That's it, man." And she goes, "Wait a minute. I've been standing there for 2 hours for these guys. All you guys and girls are singing this as many times as you want," because that's what we told them. Sing it till you're happy,
Mm.
And a lot of people said, "I'm done. I'm done." A lot of them were one take, and some of them were 2 or 3 takes. And Huey Lewis was scared because he basically, when we said, "Well, Prince isn't coming, Huey, that's you." We all loved his solo, and he had only had one hit. The rest of these people are iconic.
Yeah,
So there
yeah.
was a lot of emotions going on. Yet he filled the bill, and so I'm going on and on about this,
You
but
know, you
just
know what
kind
I
of,
can't, I can't wrap my brain around. I thought about this that night that I watched it. I've thought about it several conversations that you and I have had over the years. And it keeps popping up. It's like, I can't imagine that video without every one of those people. It's like, it's not like you could go, well, without Aldro, it would still be fine. I can't imagine any one of those people being excluded from it because it's such a great ensemble of people and voices that were so unique. That's just the way
yes.
I saw it.
I'm sorry. I got to shut this down. I'm really sorry. I love this new phone, but I still haven't learned it. Okay, it's off
New
now.
phones, new phones.
Um, no, but you know what? You just said something that I don't mean to interrupt, but to me, this is honestly how I felt, because I'd never done this either. None of us had. But the point was that anytime that I'm in a spot where I know what I'm doing is important, that's when I stop thinking and I let it come into me. And that's what happened that night, is that there was a higher power. I was the tool. I was the tool that said, "Sing this. This is you. This is you. This is you." But nobody asked me, "Why did you pick me for that?" In fact, when I had worked with Tina before, and I loved Tina, and she had the most, energy as and everything. And when I worked with her on the Mac Davis show, um, I was what they call the special material writer. So my job is, as because they use the old shows that had many stars on it. The agents use them to keep their stable in front of the public.
Mm,
It was a really smart thing to do.
mm.
And so they had Tina come on, and my job was to find something that the audience didn't know about them, or find out something they've always wanted to do and never had the chance. And things like that was my job. So I sort of had a template. And after we do the table rating on Monday, which is where, looking at the basic script, it's not even written yet, but so we know what we're doing, I would go knock on their doors, and they would say the same thing. "Hi, what do you got for me?" So I walked into Tina's room, and she said, "Hi, what do you have for me?" And I said, "Well, Tina, um, I'm probably your biggest fan, and your energy, your dancing, your singing knocks me out. But I just had an idea 5 steps before I knocked on your door, and I'm just going to share it with you. I would like to hear you sing "You Are So Beautiful." And she said, I get to do that? I said, if you want to. And she goes, oh, yes. Well, she killed it. If you look, think about it, she's actually the female version of the guy who sang it. You know what I mean? They had the same kind of voice. Anyway, it worked beautiful. And she never forgot that. She loved it. She come up and thanked me. Thank you for letting me do that. Everybody wants me to dance and and I love to do it, but this is the first time I've been able to sing this. So to me, I love the warmth in her lower range. So I put her down there on We Are the World. And Quincy's looking at it because I did the arrangement and brought it back to him. I said, "This is it." And he looks at her and he goes, "Oh, I think you put Tina too low, man. I don't think she can sing down there." And I said, "Well, there's where experience might argue with you, because I did this with her, and her warmth. It feels like her arms are wrapped around you, and that's what I want." And he said, okay, man, if you trust it, I trust you. So those are the only questions that happen. And everything else just popped in. And I love Billy Joel. I had done an album with him, Innocent Man. When they called me when Phil Ramone and Billy called me to do the vocal arrangements on it. And I said, why? Billy writes his own backgrounds and they're the best ever. And he said, yeah, but this is an homage to all of the genres that created him. And he's fine writing the songs, but he doesn't want to get down to the minutia of vocals. So would you do that? And I said, oh yeah, now I understand. That'll be great. You know what I mean? So I had worked with him and it was a joy. I could do a whole show on that album with him. Another fabulous person. And the thing is that I looked at that room of people and I thought, these are all, forget their artistry. They're all extraordinary people. And everyone that I see in here has generous spirits. They're all generous spirits. And I think that's why this all spoke so loudly all over the world, because these are things that you can't list, that you can't formulate, that you can't say, and now we want to do it just like that. No, that it happens once. That's why I keep getting notes from dear friends of mine, and they say, we need to re-record that. And I said, you don't repaint the Mona Lisa. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It was a once, and in fact, Quincy got, when they were having all the trouble down in the country that was devastated, and they redid We Are the World, and it made a bunch of money, which is fine, but nobody remembers it because it wasn't the original and it was different singers and it was the whole thing. And you go back in and you're trying to redo something, you don't repaint The Last Supper.
Yeah.
So
well said. Oh man.
So and the point is that none of us knew what it was going to be. We just knew that we were there and offered and Ken Cragen again, and then Bao making this movie. I'm telling you, this guy's going to go. He's a huge, in my view, I think he's a huge and a tremendously talented. And again, another one, you can tell because he put emotion in every inch of that film, and the real emotions that we felt.
Yeah, I loved it, and I rarely watch anything more than once, and Flo and I already said we're going to watch it again. So, I really enjoyed it. I'm going to open it up for Q&A if that's okay, Tommy.
Absolutely. I'm
Good.
here.
So guys, if you want to bring yourselves on and ask a question or make a comment, now's a great time to do that. Wesley Goo, I know Wesley Goo. He is such a music aficionado. Um, I don't know if I said that right, but I think
What?
Wes.
I'm
There he
sorry.
is.
Oh,
Hey, what's up?
Hey.
I don't see your name up here.
It's right here. I don't know, Bob.
Put your,
You have to
put
like,
your name up.
Wesley's pointing
you
at
have
it.
to muse the mouse over the square, and then you see the
Oh,
names.
oh, I see. Oh, Wesley, I know you. How
Yeah,
are
how
you,
you doing,
man?
Tommy? Good to see you.
I've seen you maybe once in my life, but I see you. I follow you all the time.
Yeah, yeah, it's great. First, thanks, Bob, for doing this conversation. Appreciate it. And second, Tommy, congratulations on all the success of the not just your career, which is legendary, but also the documentary on Netflix, the article in Rolling Stone, everything that you're having right now, you well deserve. So first, congratulations for that.
Thank
Uh,
you, Wesley.
and then second of all, I have 1,000 questions, but I'm limited to one. I was trying to think of what would be a question I can ask because I have questions about each of the performers and the way you put it together and all the backstories and why Prince didn't end up playing guitar and all this sort of stuff. But my question, I guess, would be what wasn't in the documentary that could have been in there that you think would have been a good addition, but didn't have time?
You
There
know, I've
any
never considered that. It
Okay.
was such a meal.
Yeah.
It was such a full meal. It would be like eating the greatest meal ever cooked and saying, what do we miss? And you're full and you're happy and you're in heaven.
Yeah.
That's the way it especially with the end of the night, we were actually outside walking to our cars when Diana started crying. And
Mm.
and Quincy's walking with her. I'm walking with Ken, and he says, "Are you okay?" And she goes, "I don't want this to be over." She was the last. She stayed from the beginning till 8. We showed up at 5:30 in the afternoon the day before. Started with Michael's vocals because again, Michael was only comfortable being alone.
Yeah.
You know, we wanted to get him. If all the other people were in there, he would have not wanted to sing. And that's the same thing with Prince. Prince didn't want to be there because these guys grew up controlling their own space and and nobody questions their space. And they're free to do that. And all of a sudden you're looking up and say, I wonder what Stevie thinks, you know? What if, and so I didn't have any questions. So ask me another question.
Okay.
That was a great
Another
question,
question.
Wes.
Yeah. What was the deal with Waylon Jennings? Did he
Well,
just walk out before?
Waylon was country. He was real country. That's why we wanted him there.
Yeah.
And 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 a lot of real country people aren't interested in singing in Africa. And he wasn't even comfortable being there because he felt like a fish out of water,
Yeah.
as Bob Dylan did a bit,
Yeah.
you know. But Waylon is a huge
Sure.
artist, but compared to the other people that were there, he was kind of on another level, and nobody asked him to do a solo. And some of the people were a little bit muffed about that. We really didn't hear about it. All we heard was hearsay.
Yeah.
And once they started singing with, you know, Swahili, he thought, well, I'm not happy being here anyway, and I'm not going to sing in Swahili, and he left. So God bless him for doing that,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
and God bless Stevie Wonder for helping Bob out that way, because like you could tell Bob was a fish out of water, and but wanted to do it was his whole life to give back, you know. So
Well, he
helping him
sang it. Well,
out.
he's such a mimic. He sang it just actually. All Bob did was copy him.
Yeah.
There's a choice we're making, you know. I mean, no, I worked with Stevie since he was a teenager,
Oh,
and what another artist like that. You know, you put them in a class with the Michael Jacksons, you know. I mean, they're just such creative machines and
Yeah.
they can't stop. You know, and if Marvin Gaye was alive, he would be the same way, you know. All of these people that just pour it out of them, and none of them could sleep. I became pretty good friends with one of my big heroes was Burt Bacharach.
Mm.
And I love Burt, and Burt, I went on the road with him, and I wouldn't go on the road back then because I lost too much money. And I was raising a family by this time. So, you know what I mean? Money was important. When I was a bachelor, I go, yeah, let's do that. What the hell? You know? But anyway, he had trouble sleeping, and so did Michael. And Michael's whole thing was that he felt obligated when something came to him, he felt obligated to memorialize it, at least start a song. And that's what he would do when he couldn't sleep. Now, on a whole other, if he's at the 120th floor, I'm probably at the 20th, but I've learned that I understand how that works too. When it comes to you, I love what Quincy Jones used to say. When I first met him, within 10 minutes, we were brothers. And I said, hey man, do you wake up in the middle of the night with tunes going through your head? He said, hell yeah, all the time. I said, do you write it down? He said, yeah, otherwise I'll go to Mancini's house. Now that's Quincy's humor, but what truth is in that?
There's a lot.
You know, and we used to talk about the thing we loved, and we called her the muse because the female gives birth. And so the muse is female because she gives us the birth. And some of them you nurture and you love them. Other ones kick down the doors of the saloon like a drunken cowboy. Say, get out of here. I'll shoot you. You know, I mean, they all come in like, and you ask any woman who's had more than one child, and you ask them, were the child births alike? They laugh. No. You know, so that was, I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Yeah,
But
you absolutely did. Yeah,
okay, cool.
I don't want to monopolize. So thank you so much, Tom. Good to see you again. And
Wesley, it's great to see you, man.
yeah, you too. Thanks,
Eric
Bob.
Swanson, you're up, brother.
Awesome. I'm trying to find can I come on camera?
Yeah, you should be able
Okay,
to.
great.
I'm not
Just
seeing
need
you.
to-
Who is it?
You just need to
Eric Swanson.
let me come on camera.
There we go.
There we go. I think it's
There
all right.
Yes.
Excellent. Hey Tom, my name is Eric
Oh, there
Swanson.
you are.
There I am. Good to see you. How are you, Tom?
I'm great, man. How are you? Where are you?
Oh man, it's such a pleasure to meet you. I'm in Scottsdale today.
Oh,
It's
cool.
such a pleasure to meet you. I appreciate you being here and sharing all your stories. I have a question for you, and it's more of a personal question because I know your stories are, oh my gosh, I want to replay this interview and just keep on listening to the stories over and over. And I was texting Bob a second ago, like he and I text like schoolgirls back and forth, and I'm texting going, oh my gosh, this is just like speaker land, some of the stories, you know. But here's my question to you. So it's clear to me, Tom, that you don't put fear, you don't allow fear to stand in your way. It's clear to me about that. I'm curious, is there something that sometimes you are fearful of, and how do you overcome that?
Well, now you're going back to the way I was raised.
Mm.
And my grandmother, I wrote a book about this, and I'm not here to sell books,
Mm.
but I
I'm
finally
here to
wrote
buy them. I want to buy your book. Yes.
I wrote a book called What You Want Wants You, because this is my grandmother's philosophy. And she was widowed at 26 with a 6-year-old child, my dad. And this came to her. What do I want? What do I want? So what I learned from her was that fear is your friend. And fear is saying to me, pay attention. You know, you walk out into the traffic, you could be fearful and be, oh my God, I don't want to do it. Or say, I got to be really careful here. I think being really careful is positive. It's a movement forward, not saying I'm not going to do that. So I don't know. I think part of it is just the way my heart beats. I don't have a control over it. In that, so many people ask me, how did you, even some of my oldest friends say, how did you feel being with with 46 stars in there, you know? And I thought, I felt great. We're all here to do a job. This is my job. And I love you all. And everyone in there, as I said earlier, had a very generous heart. They weren't looking for show me, pro me. They were like, guide me. So when you're going like, okay, here's, you know, and if any one of them said, I don't want to sing that, I would have responded and say, well, show me what you want to sing to see if we can't work it out. But that never happened. When they saw their name, they just went, okay, great. And
I love it. Wow.
so fear has never been something that stopped me. And I honestly don't remember in my life ever being afraid. I've been cautious to the point that I'm not going to walk down that hill. It's too steep for me.
Mm.
But that's not fear. That is actually a positive thing.
Right.
That I'm not going to let my body do something that it can't cash, you know?
Right. Right. Oh my gosh, I love it. I'm humbly gonna make a suggestion to the answer that you keep on hearing. How do you feel about being in a room with 46 stars? I think your answer should be, I feel like the 47th star. That's
Well,
what I think.
I don't tend to consider myself in those terms.
Sure.
I know that I have confidence because I've been trained from a young age, not trained by a father who wanted me to be away. I was trained by a father who never told me what to do, who asked questions and made suggestions if I would receive them. That gave me a tremendous feeling of trusting myself instead of looking outside for something that I'm not. I don't know if that answers your question, but
Absolutely.
that's my honest feeling. So I've never, I mean, I was only in the business 3 months when I met Elvis Presley on his comeback special. I did his comeback special, 1968, another special that is iconic, you know? And he and I and my brother on a break went and smoked a cigar together because he was a dude. We're dudes. We both like the same thing. And I saw him bring out this cigar. It was a beautiful, some kind of a thing. And I said, wow, what a cigar. He said, do you like cigars? I said, yeah. And my brother said, so do I. So on a break, he says, come on, let's go. So we went went into the alley where the studio was, and we about a half an hour that we smoked a cigar, talked about girls, sports, and and music. And so it was just dudes. And I think it breaks down to all of that. That's what I felt with Quincy Jones. The moment I met him, I knew that, I mean, he answered he had heard some arrangements I did for Sarah Vaughan, and he called me through we used to have answering services, and the answering service is Quincy Jones trying to reach you. I said, well, please call him, because I loved his work. And he said, hey man, I heard some charts you did for Sassy and I love them. And I'm doing a new album. It's different than anything I've done. And I'd like for you to be the vocal arranger. I said, great. And he said, what are you doing now? And I said, well, I'm almost finishing this date. So I went and drove out to his place, and he lived in Brentwood and had a glass front door. I knock on the door, and he's walking and if you ever see Quincy in his prime, had one of the coolest walks I've ever seen in my life. So he's walking and he looks up and he sees me and he comes to the door and he said, "You're Tommy Bahler?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "You're not white." He thought because of the arrangements I'd done, he just but I love how he handled it. "You're not white."
Hmm.
And and within minutes, we were brothers and still are, and we've stayed up all night talking about the things we're talking about now, man. So it never gets tiring to me. I love life and I grateful for it. And somebody
Amazing.
said something about um, you deserve that or you earned that or something. And I said, that's interesting. You say I'm not disagreeing with you, but what I feel is gratitude.
Yeah.
Thank you for putting me here at this time because I'm confident of what I do. I don't think in those terms even, but I
Right.
am confident of what I do. And I want what's good for the artist as well as the song. And I trusted that because the reason that arrangement came out of me in 30 minutes is because I just answered the phone. Each one of these artists said me, 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 me. And I went, "Great, man." Listening to them, I wouldn't have changed a damn one of them. So there you have it.
It's awesome. It's awesome. Jim Miller, did you have a question or a comment? There he is.
Hello, hi
Hi,
Tommy.
Jim. How are you, man?
I'm doing awesome, man. It's beautiful listening to your stories. I
Thank
just
you, Tommy.
thoroughly
Sorry
enjoyed
for the
this
delay.
time.
My pleasure,
Yeah,
man.
Thank you,
thank
Tommy.
you.
I'm sorry,
Thank you.
Jim. To interrupt, I just wanted to mention one more thing,
Yeah,
Tommy. It's such a pleasure to meet you. First of all, thank you, Bob, for inviting me. And just like you said, Tom, the Mona Lisa. Don't reinvent the Mona Lisa. I love the fact that Bob asked the question to you, Tommy, about you know is there any one of those 46 artists that you could do it without? And really there's nobody. Although I beg to say that they couldn't do it without you. And so there's more than 46. I mean, you are an integral part of that. It's almost like you are one of the paint brush strokes of the Mona Lisa. That's all I wanted to finish with. Thank you, Tommy.
Well, thank you. That's a beautiful thing to say, and you warm my heart. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
all right.
All right, Jim, go ahead.
I'm with
Well,
you, Jim.
I had a comment. I watching the special, kind of going back to that. There was a moment towards the beginning when everybody came in the room and they were kind of, uncomfortable and everybody was kind of meeting everybody, and they knew who they were, but they weren't at a point where they were friends yet, I think, right?
Right.
It's all
Yes.
mutual respect, but it wasn't gelling. And they started singing to your recipe, same key, and it just didn't sound right. But then I don't know how it happened, but somehow Harry Belafonte started singing Deo, and
It
everybody
wasn't him
broke
that did
into
that.
that.
It
You
was
remember
Al
that?
Jarreau that did it because, yeah, actually, he was. If you look at oh my God, his name just flew out of my head. The guy you're just talking about,
Harry Belafonte.
Dale.
Harry Belafonte.
Harry, yeah. Harry wouldn't do that. He is too
He's too,
shy.
yeah, I get it.
And and besides, Al Jarreau had a lot of wine that night, which was good for him. He didn't interrupt us, but he made that moment
Okay. Well,
because
that was special. I mean, that really, like, after everybody sang that it was like the balloon popped and psh, the pressure went out of the room and everybody loosened up and started enjoying singing together, I think.
yes, you're absolutely right. And no, there were several things that happened that night. That was probably the biggest, that once they were saying, and did you see the harmonies that came out of that? Nobody
Yeah,
told him
it was
about.
so
I mean, it was
cool.
beautiful. It was a
Oh
beautiful.
yeah.
Put a track under that, we'd have a hit.
And
You
what was
know,
cool is that they captured that too.
well, that was Ken Craig, and he wanted to catch up everything that happened. We had so many, and everybody was working for free. And one of the guys, he said at the end, he said, I was going to turn in my invoice. They go, invoice?
Yeah.
That's great.
It was beautiful. It so much came together, and well, Quincy and I have agreed on this for years that it all went so well because A, we were prepared, and B, we were serving a higher power. It was the
Yes.
goodness of man that we were, of humans, that we
Yeah, it was
were
meant to be. It had to happen, and it did.
exactly. And we did our jobs.
Yeah.
That's really what I felt. We all did our jobs. We all went home happy that night. Nobody went home saying, "Oh God, I wish I would have had another take. I wish I, even when Cindy said, I only get one take, and Quincy says, come, this isn't in the movie. But he said, Cindy, come in here. So he brought her into the booth, which is now you're in the womb. And he plays back her thing. She goes, okay, I'm done.
All right.
She
She did
couldn't
an
believe.
amazing job.
Oh my God, she was
I got to
wonderful.
tears when listening to her. It was so powerful.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that power is in her voice, and she's a great creator too. She's another one, and she was one of the ones that we had on our list for look out for her, just because we don't want her interrupting. And it wouldn't be on ego, it was because she had something to share with us. And I was really grateful and talked to a lot of the people that night, about, I'm so glad that you just went along. They said, man, we were in the ocean swimming together. Nobody was going to say, watch this, we were just in awe of the guys singing before us and after, it was beautiful.
cool.
It was just beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you, Tommy.
Well, yeah, but you're very welcome, Jim. Thank you for asking.
And Tommy, Joe Ingram's over on Facebook, and he's saying hi, and we got some other people over there. I'm trying to keep everyone on Zoom if they're going to ask questions and stuff. So, but I don't see any other questions. I just see some comments. But Michelle, if you have a question or a comment, you're more than welcome to bring yourself on. But guys, I hope one of the best parts about Tommy is his humility. One of the parts I love about Tommy is his relatability. I mean, humility is one thing. His relatability. Tommy can walk into any room and be amazingly is so talented at being relatable to anyone in the room. You don't have to have a music background. You don't have to have voice. You don't have to have all the stuff that you might think you need to have a great conversation or connection with Tommy. Tommy's just relatable. And I found that day when I heard him speak. I found that the next day when we had coffee, and I found it the many, many times that we've gotten together or had phone conversations before or since then. And I think one of the lessons that I take from Tommy is your ability to be relatable to those around you. You don't have to become a chameleon, but be relatable. And I think, Tommy, that's one of your superpowers is anyone who meets you, in my opinion, just walks away a better person. And I think that's a great testament to who you are, sir.
And vice versa. Everybody I meet, I learn something from. In fact, there is a philosopher that said this. I don't recall who it is, but I've never met a person so, ignorant's the wrong word, but I've never met another person that I couldn't learn something from. And I was raised that way.
Agree.
Is that listen to the person, and if you're not listening to their words, listening to how they phrase their words. Are they comfortable? Are they afraid? Are they giving? Are they trying to get something from you? Are they trying to give you something? And all of a sudden you get all these filters going, and you can kind of tell what they are, but you find the good in all of them. And the thing is, I'm a big fan of Prince. And I knew he wasn't coming. In my heart, I knew he wasn't coming that night because he's not comfortable around men.
Mm.
If you look at him, most of his band are girls. The singers are girls. Everything he does, he loves women, and he was a good lover, I hear. I know some of his anyway, but he was caring. He was himself. And I go back to, this may sound funny, but I go back to Mozart and then go to Beethoven. And if you look at Mozart's scores, he only wrote them once because it was all in his head. He was taking dictation as he wrote it down. So it looked like a copyist did. It was perfect, beautiful. His scores are beautiful.
That's
Well,
incredible.
he was raised by a father who was a composer. And he saw the extraordinary brilliance, like a Michael Jackson kind of talent in his little boy. And he nurtured that. And he gave him a platform to grow out of. And Mozart did more in 36 years than any other composer has in history. And then you have Beethoven. And I'm not comparing them because I don't think you can compare. First of all, they're years apart. There was one night when they were in the same room together. And I had the good, well, I got to be in that room one time. I can't deny it. I rubbed up against the wall. But Beethoven's father was a composer and frustrated and would punish him the way that some of those nuns used to slap your hand with a ruler for not doing what they wanted. And the difference is, that's the way I look, the way my dad raised me, the way that Mozart's Leopold raised his son. My dad was always there to help. He never said, "Why did you do that? That was stupid." I mean, I remember him coming up to me and seeing me all verklempt and said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No." He said, "You want to talk about it?" I said, "Well, I made a terrible mistake." And he said, "Really? Did you make a mistake or a discovery?" Wow. The shame goes away, it disappears, it turns into dust. And then Mozart, and that's the way Mozart was, that's the way Michael was. And even though Michael had a father who criticized him, he found the guy who unlocked his cage, and that was Quincy Jones. And Beethoven's, if you look at his scores, they're a mess. He takes lines that's all crossed out, and then he writes it again, and he crosses it out. And so his mind was somewhat chaos. He was a genius, and he was wonderful. And I love all of their music. I don't grade them. But the point is, I look at the happiness in Mozart's music. And I look at the fact that Beethoven was never married, and the woman he fell in love with didn't fall in love with him. So, I mean, there was kind of, I wouldn't call it a tragedy, but there was an unhappiness in him. And yet his music wasn't like that. Listen to his odds. By the way, if you're interested, I hope you are, because I'm going to tell you anyway. Beethoven's odd symphonies.
Okay.
1, 3, 5, 7, and 9 are the most aggressive. Da 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 da, da 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 da. And then his even symphonies. My favorite is the 6th, which they call. I'll think of it in a minute. But anyway, it was the first programmatic symphony. He wrote about being in the woods, the pastoral symphony. It is so beautiful. In fact, in one movement of it, he writes it simple because he goes into the country where he's around these people, and they're very simple people. And like the bassoon could only play 3 notes. but he plays them, and he writes this melody that's a beat off. Because normally you go da 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 dee, you know, and he didn't. It goes 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, da 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 da. Anyway, I can barely sing it because I sang it the other way. But the point is that he did this thing to demonstrate what his feelings were. You know, they were beautiful, and so to me, his even symphonies are much more inward piece of the loveliness of nature, and the other ones are like fight your way through this. Number 3 was written for Napoleon, you know.
Really?
I mean, so anyway,
Wow.
I just love things like that. They're nuances
The
to me.
history of that is just amazing. I had no idea about any of that. That's really
Well,
cool.
we all have a lot of things to think about.
Yeah.
And it's just, I've listened so much to I used to smoke joints and listen to symphonies. And I kind of learned that from Sidney Lumet, because when we were doing the Wiz, he invited us all over for dinner at his home in the whatever that lovely place is in the East. Anyway, Gloria Vanderbilt was there. Betty Bacall was there. When there were 10, 12 people, and Quincy and I were there. And we sit and we have this lovely, lovely dinner. The conversation is beautiful. And at the end, after our coffee, he takes out a joint and passes it around, and everybody at that table was smoking. And then he took us into his music room, and it's a beautiful room, and he's playing recordings of Horowitz at the piano, and he turns all the lights off. It's black, you can't see a thing. We're all high, full of wine, and we listen to this with these energies in the room that you can't see, but you can feel them. I got to tell you, I will never forget that night as long as I live. And that's the power of this stuff. If I just let myself go and listen to it and let it move me, instead of say, why did he do that? Or how did he do that? Or, oh my God, that must be hard to play. I mean, that's all physical stuff. And I think that spiritually, we are much more than we are physically.
Mm.
I hope I'm not going off the deep end here.
No,
but
I agree. I agree. And I love the insight that you have, because you have it from a different perspective than the average person would see music, or would see composing, or would see any of those things. So I appreciate that. I want to touch on a subject, because I've heard this story before, but so many people haven't, about you wrote the song "She's Out of My Life" that Michael Jackson ended up recording, and so have so many other people now. Can you kind of tell that story about how that song got written?
oh yeah, well, I the love of my life, I had a marriage to a lovely person, but as our marriage went on, we both saw that we weren't going to make the grade together, and we parted. We didn't have any children. We were only married for 2 years, and we just parted with love and all of that. And so I wasn't looking for a mate, but I was asked to come out and judge this choir contest. So I went out there to do it, and the choirs were great and all this stuff. And I did notice this one woman, and then a young woman, and then the guy who brought me in was the professor, took me to lunch someplace, and it was just a little place like Bob's or whatever. And we're sitting there, and all of a sudden this girl walks in, who I'd noticed before. And and then I said, oh, I saw her late, and he said started telling me about her. He said she's quite talented and she's a lovely person and her lovely family and everything. So I was just getting ready to do these things for Disney, and I had a big date going on, a big recording date in Hollywood. So I passed these two girls and I said, hey, by the way, I was talking to your professor and he mentioned that you were interested in these things. I'm going to do this date. Here's the date. I'll leave your names, give me your names, and I'll leave them at the door. And if you want to come in and watch a session with some pretty good musicians, I think you'd enjoy it. Well, they did. They drove out from Orange County into Hollywood, and the two of them came in. So that's how I met her. And then and then I got to know her family, and we started dating, and we were wonderful together. And finally, I was perplexed. I was vexed by saying "till death do us part." This is when I let my left brain overpower. You say, "Why aren't you afraid?" Because I listen to my right brain, which is not afraid. You know, my left brain is defensive, you know, and good. I mean, it's not like we can't, I don't want to live without it, but you just learn anyway. And her father was Cuban, her mother was Irish, two cultures that believe in marriage, big time. And they were, and her dad set me down and said, hey, you know what? We like you. We like you a lot. But I hope you don't think you're just going to date my daughter, because either leave or marry her, you know. And so and not in a mean way. He was a gentle, lovely man, and the mother was the best, is the best. She's still with us. And so anyway, it gets to the point where Marla is saying, and I tell her I'm going through this thing, and I said, but this is to me, this was a big lesson. I was thinking monolithically. I want to come to you, myself. I'm not myself right now. I'm being tortured, and it's not terrible because I'm able to work and stuff, but I'm just not emotionally. I'm a mess, and I want to come to you healthy. You know, well, that was the wrong thing to say to her. What I should have said, I learned the hard way, is that you want to marry this guy? I'm a mess. I'm not going to always be this way, because I'll get over it. But right now I'm a mess. And if you want to marry me, I'm on. It would have been the difference. But instead, I was thinking monolithically. I know who I can be. I want to come to you as that person. She didn't even know that person.
Wow.
So I lost her. And finally she said to me, and not in, by the way, Rhonda and I are very close friends, very close friends. And it's beyond romance now. Our love for each other is so beautiful, you know. And I'm glad that she's in my life. But she said, you know, Tom, marry me or I'm gonna have to go elsewhere. I'm getting too much pressure at home. And it wasn't, she wasn't giving me an ultimatum. I mean, it sounds like it, but she was just trying to say, this is how bad it's good. I'm going to have to do something else, you know? And so I wouldn't pull the trigger, and she went elsewhere. And then I was devastated. And I thought, well, the best thing I could do is just date a lot of wonderful women because they're around. And I did, but they were all vacuous dates and they had nothing to do with the women. They had everything to do with me. So I'm driving home from another vacuous date on the Pasadena freeway, and I'm crying as I'm driving, and I'm on the part of the freeway where there are no shoulders. And normally when I'm writing something and something comes to me, I'll pull off even on the shoulder and just write down enough that it'll come back to me. So this came back, and I finally, I don't know if you ever talk to yourself when you out loud. Well, okay, so did I. And I said, hey man, she was there. She loved you. She wanted to marry you. You would not pull the trigger. So deal with it. She's out of your life. And at that moment, the drunken cowboy did come in, kicking down the doors of the saloon. And it came out all at once. The lyrics, the music, I heard the accompaniment. And I thought, oh my God, where do I pull off? I got it. She's out of my life. She's out of my life. I don't know whether to laugh or cry. I don't know whether to live or die. And I thought, that's it. That, and it cuts like a knife. And then it's just went on from there. I had everything except one word that came later, but I kept singing it over to myself because I was 45 minutes away from home and I wanted to have it. So by the time I got home, I sat down at my piano, and this thing is not an easy thing to. Part of the song's simple, but the bridge is a big challenge. And I was up till 4 o'clock in the morning getting this thing under my fingers.
Man.
So that's how the song was born.
And I love that when Michael went to record it, you tell the story about there was something that he didn't feel comfortable saying.
Oh yeah, well yes, thank you. Because my original lyric, because this was about Rhonda, at the last stanza is damn indecision and cursed pride. I kept my love for her locked deep inside. Well, the original lyric is, instead of being my wife, she's out of my life, which was the truth and a beautiful contrast. When you're a writer, you're looking for contrast, just like we did with those singers in We Are the World. The contrast is what, to me, was what I was looking for. And we got it. But anyway, the same thing. So Michael's singing the song and he pulls me aside on a break and he says, Tommy, I want to talk to you about the song. I love it so much, man. But there's one lyric in there. And I thought because he was a Jehovah's Witness, well, he's not going to sing damn indecision.
Mm.
And I said, well, I can change that. And he said, no, it's not that. I'm a singer singing a song. I'm okay with that. But when it comes down to instead of being my wife, he said, man, I'm 19 years old. It's not even on my screen. I don't see it at all. I don't feel it at all. And I said, of course you don't. Oh my God, thank you. I said, give me a minute. I'll do something. I'll come in. He said, I've got an idea. Well, that's when I learned that when Michael says he has an idea, he's putting the port to his rocket ship and inviting you in. And I said, oh, he says, I have an idea. You want to hear it? And I said, yeah. He said, well, I love that line that you use in the first verse about, and it cuts like a knife. I've never heard that in the song. So I went, let's see, damn indecision, cursed pride. I kept my love for her locked deep inside, and it cuts like a knife. Oh my God, Michael. Oh my God. And he said, well, it's it's your lyric.
Oh man, I just I love all your stories, but I love the stories that have such depth to them. I love your stories because they have so much depth to them, and meaning for everyone who hears them, that they can take and say, I can own that. I can claim that as part of me. That song, She's Out of My Life, when I first heard it, after you sang it for us at the event.
Mhm.
You sat down at a piano and played it, and I'm like, oh yeah, I know that song. I was like, wow. And then I've watched it so many times since then and heard the story about it. You know, Tommy, you've just got such a life well lived, and I'm so grateful for your influence in this world. And I'm so grateful for your influence in my life and for your friendship over the years. So thank you. And thank you for being here today.
Well, I'm grateful to you, and I'm grateful for my life, and I'm grateful for the gifts I've been given. And my obligation is to use them to the best of my ability and still stay happy.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the
You
key.
know, there
Yeah.
is a limit where
Yeah.
I go, man, I'm not going to do that right now. If
Right.
I do that, I'm going to be miserable. And I just don't like being miserable. I was raised, half of my family was miserable, half of my family was happy. I chose the happy side.
Yeah.
And I saw all the other, and I thought, what's that getting for them? They're sad, they're upset. I don't want to be that way. And I thought, you know what? Maybe I have a choice. And I turned out I did.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for
Thank you, man.
thank you for having those boundaries in your life that allow you to be the man that you are today. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I don't even think of them as boundaries. It's funny. I hear things that I don't those words don't come. To me, it's opportunity. It's
Okay.
an opportunity to be happy. And I chose that over the prison of
Yeah.
being unhappy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm not saying anybody else should feel that way, but I do speak up when I hear a word that doesn't work in my vocabulary. It's not a negative word,
Right.
but anyway.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you.
Well, and I appreciate you, man. I appreciate our friendship. And yeah, we're still on the road and we'll keep going.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So hang on real quick and then we'll end the broadcast at least.
Okay.
So guys, get out there, make it a great week and enjoy your next level. Hold on, Wes, I have a question for you. So let's see here. Broad stream. It's not. That's interesting. Okay. It's not letting me just stop the streaming. It's really weird why it's not doing this. One more and then I think we're done. It's weird. It's not they changed something on it. All right. There. Well, Wesley's gone too, so I don't know what happened. So, anyways, there he is. There's
There
Wes.
it is.
So, Wes, that was a great question. I loved your first question. That was a great one. You're mute. You're muted.
Your sound's off right now.
You're muted, Wes.
Sorry, yeah, I was. I mean, I have so many questions. I was a huge fan first of when I first learned of Bob Geldof and what he was doing with "Do They Know It's Christmas?" And then when We Are the World came out, I mean, that's the biggest stars of the day. And from there, I have so many, so much admiration for that piece of work and for your role in it and all the work you've done. I just learned a second ago, I was kind of multitasking. I was listening to you while washing dishes, and I thought I heard you say you were part of Elvis's comeback in '68.
Yes, I sang on that show.
Really?
And hung out with him, man. What a good guy. What a good guy.
Incredible.
Hey, Tommy, do you remember when we were sitting there talking? And I said, well, then you knew Elvis. And you said, yeah. And I said, well, then do you know my friend Linda Thompson? And you go, I've known Linda Thompson.
Are you kidding?
You lived in Newport. And so so I reconnected you guys.
She was married to David Foster.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing.
That's when I really got to know her.
Yeah.
Because we used to have Sunday night dinners with our two families.
That's
because our kids, both of my daughter and her and their son were well, I mean, they're like 12 years old, so they're that kind of boyfriend girlfriend. You know, it's cute.
That's yeah. I mean, I just remember you've got such a history in it's just amazing. Such amazing history. So Wes, do you have any other? I know you had another question or two, so I wanted to give you an opportunity.
Oh my gosh.
Wesley's probably one of my closest friends in the world, Tommy.
Really?
We have done a lot of things together and battled a lot of battles together. So
yeah.
I know he's a really big into music, and so I knew that you guys had some great conversation.
Well, I can tell by your wall. That's a beautiful wall. I was it's wonderful, man.
Yeah, I'm a big music fan. I mean, I have questions about everything. What was it like? I mean, I know you were from the beginning, and the story of your parents and how you were raised, your father is just incredible. And you were raised, you've been doing this for so long. It can seem like old hat, but I suspect that with you, it's still very magical. And I have kind of a fanboy question. Is there anybody that
that intimidated you when you met him? Like that you thought, oh my God, like I'm used to being around the big names, but this person seemed different or
No,
okay.
honestly, you know, I've been so lucky. When I lived, I decided I wanted to be independent. Um,